Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Girivardhari Jasodhanandana Brajajanaranjana Jasodhanandana Brajajanaranjana Jamanatira Vanam Chadi Jamanatira Vanam Chadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Jasodhanandana Brajajanaranjana Jasodhanandana Brajajanaranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayom Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Parivajagacharya Astatara Satasi Srimad His Divine Grace Sri Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavarinda Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Gora Premanandi Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya We're moving quickly to the close of chapter 37, Canto 10. In this chapter 37, there's several sections. Well, from the previous chapter, Narada visits Kamsa, says, "You pleased me very much by your nice reception. I have some news for you. The eighth child of Devaki is over there. You suspected it, I'm now confirming it. The son of Nanda and Yashoda." So Vasudev tricked you He took the child over there. I'm going to kill Vasudeva and Devaki. Here's my sword. No, 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 no. Don't do that. Then Krishna will run away and hide. You don't want that. You want it's the eighth child of Devaki. That's where you give your attention. And he made some suggestions how to take care of it. So immediately, a few things. Kamsa called Keshi, go get him. Kamsa called his ministers. Let's make a plan to bring Krishna to Mathura so we can kill him here. And he then had his discussion with Akrura. That was the previous chapter. So at the beginning of chapter 37, Keshi goes. Keshi gets killed. Akrura is getting ready to go. He hasn't left yet. And Narada goes to visit Krishna. And Narada says some nice things to Krishna about himself. Narada says, by your grace, I know who you are. I know all about you. And I know the sequence of your pastimes. This and this and that and that and that and that. He lays out what his upcoming pastimes will be. And then concludes saying some nice things again about the transcendental position of Krishna. And there's like extensive commentary on those verses because it's laying out Bhagavan in Bhagavad Sandarbha is replete with referring to those verses. And then when that section is over, that's where we are. It's next is Vyomasura. So there's discussion about our Acharya, we're going to be reading. There are two principal views about Vyomasura. He appeared much earlier, and it's only being narrated by Shukadeva Goswami at this point in time. And then another view is it happened after Narada's visit, the killing of Vyomasura. We will hear. That's quite okay. Our acharyas have different points of view. Just a quick reference, and we'll do some more of it as we go along. Bhaktivinoda Thakur's, just a reminder, the special position of a role of Krishna's killing demons in Vrindavan is Krishna's helping the neophyte devotee overcome obstacles on the path of bhakti. We have some obstacles. So in Chaitanya Shikshamritam, he speaks of Keshi in this way: the illusion of being a great devotee or acharya is represented by Keshi. Lording it over others and material pride must be given up. And then after Narada's departure, he goes back. Vyomasura, son of Mayadanava, represents thieves and fake devotees. We'll hear shortly about the children playing games, thieves. Krishna Samhita, Sri Krishna Samhita, Bhaktivinoda writes a little differently about Vyomasura. The 14th obstacle in developing love for Krishna is stealing others' property and speaking lies. These create disturbances in Braja in the form of Vyomasura. So now, text 24, those of you that like to follow along, 10:37:24. Shukadeva Goswami said, having thus addressed Lord Krishna, the chief of the Yadu dynasty, Narada bowed down and offered him obeisances. Then that great sage and most eminent devotee took his leave from the Lord and went away, feeling great joy at having directly seen him. No BBT commentary. Here's Jiva Goswami's commentary. Since Krishna did not want to leave Gokula, he did not directly accept what Narada said. Now this is Jiva's position. Others have a different perspective. However, by mentioning the word Yadupatim, master of the Yadus, it is suggested that he accepted. Narada offers respects on the ground because he was the best of the devotees. He knew the intention of the Lord. However, in Dwaraka, among crowds of people, Krishna offered respects to him. He does not act otherwise towards Narada. Joyful at seeing Krishna, he departed. Why? He was sent off by Krishna. So it's mentioned at the beginning of this visit by Narada, Krishna arranged that he would be in a separate place. And the pretext was he was going to see some beautiful scene in the forest, and that's where Narada found him, and that's where it was a private discussion. So here Krishna is accepting Narada's obeisances it's the other way around in Dwarka. Sanatana Goswami writes, since he, Krishna, was the Lord of the Yadus, he must protect them. So that's by saying Yadupati, that's invoking that spirit, the intention of Krishna to give protection. Yadus, Mathur, is that away, please? He was Krishna, who is attracted affectionately to the devotees. Thus, this is Sanatana Goswami, Krishna did not hate Narada for informing him of the events. Narada is again called the best of the devotees, so that Parikshit would not hate him. Or, Narada offered respects because Krishna was Bhagavan. Though he was the Lord of the Yadus, he was the joy of Gokula. So over there he's the Lord, and over here he's bliss personified. For these reasons, Narada offered respects. Paragraph. He was joyful on seeing Krishna. Even then, he departed. Why? He was sent off by Krishna. Abhyanuj Shataha. He was sent off by Krishna. He departed fearlessly, Abhi, after offering respects, which made him fearless. Question. Since Narada was a great devotee, why did he not pray to stay in Braja? Good question, right? He knew, Munihi, that by living there at that time, he would commit offenses by obstructing the pastimes of Krishna with the gopis in Braja, and he understood that the people of Braja would curse him after understanding that he had come there to advise Krishna to go to Mathura. So he left quickly. Text 25, chapter 37. After killing the demon Keshi in battle, the Supreme Personality of Godhead continued to tend the cows and other animals in the company of his joyful cowherd boyfriends. Thus he brought happiness to all the residents of Vrindavan. So the killing of Keshi is the earlier part, then Narada visits, and now Narada has departed. So it comes this question. Anyway, he didn't leave Vrindavan that very day. That's for sure. Jiva Goswami writes, Narada departed, though he was Bhagavan, Krishna herded the cows, because he was Govinda. He enjoyed pastimes suitable as king of Gokula, manifested on earth. This sentence continues the narrative before Narada arrived. Thus it is said after killing Keshi. The word ahava, or in battle, indicates Krishna was not injured by others because of his great strength. He herded cows with the cowherd boys who had now lost all fear. and were thus pleased. Pritai. All the people of Braja were happy, following him as he left Braja for the forest. That seems to indicate the next day, or same day, whatever. Sanatana Goswami writes, though he was the Lord, he continued to herd the cows. Being affectionate to the devotees, how could he not keep Narada, who desired the Lord, there? Though he was the Lord, he continued to herd the cows with the cowherd because he was the Lord of Gokula, Govinda. Moreover, he brought happiness to Braja continually in order to accomplish pastimes with them. He could not keep Narada there. Or he could not keep Narada there since he worried about his offense to the people of Braja, since he was affectionate to the devotees. Thus he is called Bhagavan and Govinda. He killed Keshi in battle. This indicates his great strength. He herded the cows with the cowherds who were pleased, Pritai, with his killing Keshi. They praised him with various verses. And then he quotes, Sanatana Goswami quotes Vishnu Purana. When Keshi was killed, the cowherds and gopis were astonished. They praised lotus-eyed Krishna, attractive with anuraga. And in Harivangsha, it says, seeing Keshi dead, the cowherds and their wives were overjoyed. They were free from all obstacles and fatigue. They welcomed beautiful Krishna according to age and place with pleasing words and worshipped him again and again. According to these authors, Keshi was killed within Braja. There's like, where did it happen question, and some say different things. Though they praised Krishna before Narada came, they also praised him afterwards, out of respect. So after the Keshi is killed, and the boys go back and say, guess what happened? Keshi, this and that. And everyone goes, wow. Singing songs about Krishna's killing Keshi, feeling themselves very fortunate that Narayana has invested potencies in Krishna to deal with these demons. Some feeling fear for his safety and all kinds of different emotions. Praising Krishna is just part of life in Braja. Singing songs of praise is part of life in Braja. Out of respect for the great Guru Narada, Shukadeva places his praises of the Lord first. Or, because Narada was coming, Krishna sent the people here and there for a private meeting. Thus, they, the people of Braja, could not utter their praises at that time, or, since killing Keshi was not astonishing, they did not utter praises distinctly. Krishna continued to give bliss to Braja, and specifically, Sanatan says, he did not develop yet the desire to go to Mathura, though the information had been given by Narada. He liked Braja. Text 26. One day, Ekada, the cowherd boys, while grazing their animals on the mountain slopes, played the game of stealing and hiding, acting out the roles of rival thieves and herders. Short purport, Vishwanath writes, the boys acted out hiding stolen objects as thieves and protectors of herds of sheep. That's important because Vyoma, when he comes, he takes a form like a cowherd boy, and he starts kidnapping the boys that are playing the roles of sheep. It's part of the game. So he's just playing part of the game, but he has an intention. Jiva Goswami writes, Sridhar Swami explains that Narada did not see the killing of Vyomasura. After killing Keshi in the morning and hearing Narada, Krishna continued herding the cows and then killed Vyomasura. So Jiva Goswami has this position that's different than Vishwanath, and that the killing of Vyomasura happened after the Narada visit. Or the event happened earlier and is related here because it is mentioned that along with other demons who took various forms, others say that this happened before the killing of Shankachuda. So it's like a little mystery, the time sequence. Then he quotes, this is Jiva Goswami, quotes the gopis from chapter 31. So this is 37, so chronologically, the rasa dance with the gopis took place earlier. And so this is the gopis speaking. Oh, greatest of personalities, 10:31:3. You have repeatedly saved us from all kinds of dangers, from poisoned water, from the terrible man-eater Agha, from the wind mixed with rains and the fiery thunderbolt of Indra, from Vatsasura and from Vyomasura. So that makes it, one view is it happened earlier. Now it's being related later, but they knew about it because it happened earlier. So they're speaking about it. Another view is knowing what Gargamuni had said about Krishna's activities, even before it happened, they knew it would happen. So they're mentioning it before it happened. Well, here. So in that verse, 10:31:3, reference to Vatsasura is Vrishtatma Ja, and Maya Maja means Vyomasura, as explained previously. So now I'm going to read commentaries. This is Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur's commentary on this verse. Although the killing of Arishta and Vyoma are not yet to occur, it is mentioned here because the gopis, having heard about Krishna's horoscope from the sages Garga and Bhaguri Muni. Bhaguri Muni is Garga Muni's son, and he lives in Braja, and he's like, the priest in Braja. Bhaguri Muni. So they heard from Garga and Bhaguri Muni, they knew that Krishna would kill these demons in the future. That's Vishwanath. And going back to the very first verse of chapter 38, this is chapter 37. The very first verse of chapter 38, Vishwanath writes, this chapter describes how Krishna fulfilled all the desires of Akrura and welcomed him with appropriate hospitality. King Kamsa ordered Keshi and Akrura to go to Braja on the Ekadasi of the dark fortnight, Krishna Paksha, of the Vedic month of Palgun. It's like really specific. The next morning, Keshi was killed in Vrindavan by Krishna. Akrura set off for Braja. Narada praised Krishna. In the afternoon, Vyomasura was killed, and at dusk Akrura entered Braja. Now that's Vishwanath. Jiva Goswami says something different. Here's his commentary on the same verse, this verse of the Gopis, chapter 31. Jiva Goswami's commentary reads, "You protected us," the Gopis speaking to Krishna, "you protected us from wind mixed with rain, including hail, and from lightning by lifting Govardhan. This is protection of everyone. You protected us from Vatsasura, who appeared to be a calf, but on being killed took the form of a huge bull. Then you protected us from Vyomasura, parentheses, which will be described later, though it took place when Krishna was younger." Jiva Goswami has that view. These pastimes indicate protection of individuals as protection of all. This is like the story of Varaha killing Hiranyaksha, which we know from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7. It is narrated out of sequence in the 3rd canto, though it took place during Chakshusha Manvantar. So it's a narration that's out of sequence, is his point, which is he is taking the position. The narration of Yomasura after the pastime took place is like that. Vrisha Mayatmajat may also be taken as Vrishatmajat, or from the offspring of the bull, namely the calf demon. And Mayatmajat means from Vyomasura, or who was the offspring of Maya. Then summary. All are taken together by saying, "You saved us all from fear." His qualification for doing this is mentioned. Oh, best of all men, Rishabha. So Rishabdev means the best of men. Then, listen, this is Jiva Goswami's commentary, chapter 45, text number 3. Krishna killed, this is the other chronology as Jiva Goswami sees it. Krishna killed Trinavarta when he was 1 year old. Damodar pastime took place at the beginning of his 3rd year during the Kartik month. The Kartik month comes after Krishna's appearance, beginning of his 3rd year. Some days after that, they went from Gokula to Vrindavan. More specifically, it says 3 years, 4 months. Shift from Gokul to Vrindavan. After 2 or 3 months, Krishna began herding the calves. So he's 3.5, herding calves in Vrindavan. While herding the calves, he killed Vatsasura, Bakasura, and Vyomasura. There he is. Krishna's 3.5, working on 4. When the 3rd year was complete, and he entered his 4th year, in the autumn season, Brahma stole the calves and cowherd boys. That's Jiva Goswami's picture of the chronology. So in his picture of the chronology, Vyomasura took place before he was 4, after the killing of Bakasura, not after the killing of Keshi, which takes place when he's 11 in some months. And for enjoyment's sake, I'm going to read Jiva Goswami's similar description from Gopal Champu. You know what is Gopal Champu? Anyone not know what is Gopal Champu? Need an explanation? Gopal Champu. It's Jiva Goswami's writing, narrating Krishna's Braja Leela, citing in some cases, it's a special kind of literature, citing in some cases specific verses from the Bhagavatam. Some verses it's prose, some verses it's poetry, and there's rules. So it's a description of Krishna's Braja pastimes in a certain format, Champu format. Jiva Goswami writes, when Ugrasena's sinful son Kamsa heard that Baka had been slain, he became disturbed and began to think, they were all expert at deception and killing, but were all killed. Therefore, I think only Vyomasura is suitable for this job. He is the son of Sarva Maya. So who's that? Had to research. That's a name, one of the names of Maya Danava. So everyone knows who Maya Danava is. He's a popular guy. He does lots of things, Maya Danava. Famous for his strength and highly esteemed. Thus Kansa, born from the hard womb of Padmavati, brought Vyomasura and engaged him in the job. Flying in the sky and viewing the whole area, he saw near Kamyavan Krishna, acting beyond his age, surrounded by boys of similar age, sporting in a group, but without Balaram. Seeing that, he began to contemplate. Quote, playing, they call each other names, like son of a servant, family of thieves, thief in front of my eyes, and dear to the fools. They're imitating sheep, shepherds, and sheep thieves. They cannot say where the stolen sheep are being taken. The shepherds cannot count the sheep since there are so many. The thieves come silently without being seen. The boy with the dark complexion seems to be the shepherd. That boy should not come near me, since he is more brilliant than 1,000 suns. I should not secretly take him away. He is now inattentive. I can easily steal all the boys who are like his life heir, wandering about externally. When he becomes overwhelmed with agitation without struggle, I will be able to catch the leader. My master will not be pleased with the job half finished. Thinking in this way, he disguised himself as a cowherd boy, acting as a thief, and entered their playing. Entering a deep forest, he took the remaining boys who were acting as sheep, stealing more and more boys. He kept them in a cave and then sealed the entrance with a rock. Just as an insect seals other insects in his nest. Just as a lion runs after a dog and attacks him, Krishna, knowing the demon was afflicting the innocent boys, approached the demon in agitation, and catching him caused him pain. He threw down that demon that had taken away the boys because of their small size, and blocking his life air, treated him like an animal suitable for sacrifice. With firmness in all his joints were destroyed, when the firmness was destroyed, Krishna let go of him. Seeing his footprints, he followed them to the door of the cave. Breaking the stone cover, he entered the cave while shining brightly. He destroyed the darkness in the cave and the darkness in the boys' hearts. The boys, whose pain in the cave was not as great as their pain of separation from Krishna, on seeing Krishna regain their life airs, standing up and weeping, the boys caused pain to Krishna. The boys felt the mountain was also crying as it echoed, with the cries of the demon. Krishna pulled them from the cave. Surrounding him, they became free of sorrow by his touch. Seeing the frightful demon dead, they went to the gathering of their friends with joyful hearts, because some were the sheep and some were those protecting the sheep and some were the thieves. The boys and the Devatas began praising Krishna together. The boys related how they were stolen by the demon. In this way, Krishna entered Vraja. Seeing the dead demon, the Devatas, enemies of the demon, showered flowers and revealed their feelings of Krishna. No, they revealed the feelings of Krishna. Quote, when thieves play in that place, their breathing stops. You have become devoid of life. Vyomatam. What did I do? Finishing the story, the narrator spoke. The narrator in Gopal Champa, there's two. Madhukanta and Snigdhakanta, and they're telling pastimes of Krishna to the residents of Braja. So they're narrating the Vyoma story. O king of the cowherds, so they're speaking to Nanda, you have given birth to a son who has killed 3 demons, headed by Vyomasura while playing. Experiencing the death of Vyomasura directly, and filled with great happiness, and decorated with smiling faces, they returned to their houses. That's Gopal Champu's picture of Vyomasura. So just 2 more paragraphs. This is now continuing Jiva Goswami's commentary. They played a game of stealing objects and hiding them. This is described. They played the roles of thieves and herders. The 2 parties would take other boys who played the role of sheep. That is explained in the next verse. And Sanatana Goswami writes, Sridhar Swami explains that Narada did not see the killing of Vyomasura, or after the killing of Keshi in the morning, and hearing Narada, Krishna continued herding the cows and then killed Vyomasura. The boys, pleased that Krishna had killed Keshi, Krishna and all the boys played a game of stealing objects and hiding them. This is described. And they played the roles of thieves and herders. The 2 parties would take other boys who played the role of sheep. The sheep are not mentioned since they were less active and thus not prominent in the game. So aside from these differing views on when the pastime took place, that's not of great consequence. That what's of great consequence is a theme woven throughout Krishna's pastimes in Braja, a theme that says the sweetness of his pastimes. While the sweetness of his pastimes are there, he's engaging in other activities which outside of Vrindavan they're viewed in one way, and inside Vrindavan they're viewed in a very different way. And from the different rasas, it's viewed in a different way. But it's all glorifying Krishna without disclosing his divinity. It's just our wonderful Krishna. And it serves to stimulate or activate or nourish their primary rasa, their primary mood of love for Krishna. So the astonishment factor and all the other secondary rasas, they add to the joy that's the main feature in Braja, and that's the sweetness of his pastimes. And they're attached to him in that way, and he's attached to them in that way. And that's Krishna. And yet he has other functions, as reminded by Narada. He is Yadupati. He's the Lord and Master. And those who have affection for Krishna, he has affection for them. So he must. He will. But it's not easy to leave Braja. But he must. And then the rest of the pastimes flow. He actually never leaves Braja, that we know. Exactly how that happens is, it can be explained, but even it's explained, it's a mystery. He remains. Just his manifest Leela with the Brijbasis is not what's externally viewable by the Brijbasis, except for the fact that Krishna enters their hearts, and with their intensity of their devotion, it's somehow they see Krishna through the medium of their intensity of devotion, and yet they're still not satisfied. You better not go to Braja, because you might have to undergo those kinds of feelings. Not only you might have to, that's the place. You can't get enough. And then there's the apparent disappearance of Krishna. And that's part of the sweetness, which is part of the mystery. It's really an elevated science, isn't it? It's a science of rasa. And it's an ocean of rasa, and who can explore the breadth and length and depth of the ocean? We can get some picture that he's enjoying, that's for sure. And there are those enjoying with him in different ways, that's for sure. And in the evening, tomorrow, you're home, right? We'll be describing what's the destination of the demons killed by Krishna. I mean, it looks like he's smashing them and so forth, but he's giving them liberation. We're going to hear. It's a nice understanding. They're inimical towards him. He reciprocates. Oh, would you like me to be inimical towards me? Okay. Smash. And he liberates them. Not just like neutralize, but with other forms of the Lord, they may be neutralized in their reactions to their past sins, but he actually takes them to the spiritual world. Or we'll hear this evening, tomorrow evening. He's very kind. And especially attractive is the sweetness of his pastimes in Braj. So let's see if there's some discussion. We have the microphone, right?
Switch problem. It doesn't turn off, so it stays on.
It doesn't turn off? Okay, just give it to somebody.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Nice class this morning. So I was thinking how to understand this concept, like Krishna never leaves Vraja. At the same time, Gopis and Nanda Maharaj, they are all in separation of Krishna.
Well, there's different ways of describing. It's a mood, a bhava. Attachment invites feelings of separation. And Leela promotes those feelings of separation by apparently not being before them. but he never leaves. So like during the day, he goes, and the elders of Braja and the young gopis, they're feeling separation. But he comes back. And then there's feelings of separation by the cows and the cowherd boys. So they can't wait for the next morning, etc. And all the other denizens of Braja, they become ecstatic. And their description, chapter 35 is the description of what they experience when Krishna is out in the forest. They just become ecstatic. And then he leaves the forest and goes back to the village. So there's meeting and separation continuously. And then Leela-wise, he leaves. But that's the Prakat Leela, he leaves. He doesn't leave. According to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, no, Bhakti Siddhanta, such pastimes as Krishna's leaving Vrindavan to go to Mathura is a pastime of illusion. He uses the phrase Vit Brahma Vilas. Brahma is make mistakes. Vit Brahma is a big mistake, and it's a pastime, a big mistake. He leaves Vrindavan. He takes birth, and so forth. There's pastimes like that. So you can read more about it if you want to understand it better from Brahma Samhita, the longest purport in Brahma Samhita. Okay?
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you.
You have something?
Guru Maharaj, couple questions. One, how to understand that Krishna's pastimes are not metaphorical.
Krishna's pastimes
are not metaphorical.
Not metaphorical.
And yet, these demons represent certain anarthas in our hearts.
Metaphor, let's just take an example of the metaphor. The face of Radharani is like a full moon. It's a metaphor. And not a metaphor is these demons represent obstacles on the path of bhakti. There are obstacles on the path of bhakti, and the kindness, according to Bhaktivinoda Thakur and confirmed by Bhakti Siddhanta, the kindness of Krishna is his killing of demons in Braja helps those who are on the beginning stages of the path of bhakti. It helps them, the pastime helps them overcome certain obstacles. The obstacles being represented by this demon, that demon. It's an obstacle, and Krishna is helping. It's not metaphorical. Krishna is helping through that pastime. So it's the literal pastime, and it's a sound vibration, remembrance of the pastime. That helps the devotee overcome obstacles, specific ones. This one, that one.
Another question, Guru Maharaj. So there was a section where the cowherd boys were narrating all these demons that have come so far. And it seems that in Krishna's pastimes, he pretty quickly relieves them of that difficulty. we see in other devotees' lives, like, Queen Kunti recounts the difficulties that they were put through, and it seemed to have lasted longer. And you were clarifying that this is to increase the devotee's attachment to Krishna. So in our life, when we see contemporary devotees who may not be perfect, but they've surrendered everything to Krishna, being treated unfairly or going through difficulties, we understand that in the ultimate issue, it's increasing their attachment to Krishna. And yet, in the interim, all these feelings are churning in our heart, seeing unfairness and seeing injustice. Where do I take those feelings is my...
What was the question now?
Where do we repose those feelings that are being stirred for us, being silent bystanders because we don't have a position where we can make any difference to the situation?
Well, even if you had a position, if you had a position, you may be able to influence. But not having a position and not being able to influence, it's something like processing of grief. Or sorrow. Nityananda Pran sent me yesterday, in relation to the discussion we had here in the temple in the morning, about having Krishna's shelter, and by having Krishna's shelter, having protection, somehow it triggered in him remembrance of Kaushalya's words when Sumitra comes back without Ram and Kaushalya blasts him. And he's writhing already from the separation from Ram, and then his wife speaks that way. And then she speaks some verses saying how she describes sorrow, and sorrow let me pull it up. It's really nice. It's a secondary rasa. So we're not on the platform of rasas and primary or secondary, but the reflection of those things will help us understand how to process those situations. Here we go. Sorrow, so she's now, after berating Dasarath, she then apologizes, saying, at the place that I was coming from was the place of sorrow. Sorrow destroys patience. It's very similar to grieving. Sorrow destroys learning. Sorrow destroys everything. There is no enemy equal to sorrow. One can tolerate a weapon suddenly thrown at him from the hand of an enemy, but cannot tolerate even the slightest sorrow given to him by destiny. O hero, even learned sannyasis who know Dharma and have destroyed all doubts about matters concerning Dharma become bewildered when their minds are perplexed by sorrow. So Ram is the Lord of that emotion. So how to handle is, grief or sorrow or feeling someone has been wrongly dealt with. The transcendental solution or alternative is to take shelter of the personality of Godhead. because it's perplexing, it's, whatever the other ways to describing. It's causing me grief, it's causing me pain, it's causing great sorrow. And those, where do you repose their feelings is your question. You take those feelings to the Supreme Lord. Because somehow He's sanctioning this unfairness. From the material point of view, it's unfair, it's unjust, it's unkind, it's awful. And life has those circumstances. The transcendental reality, Bhaktisiddhanta explains, it's the special favor that the Lord makes an arrangement for a devotee that He is showing kindness to. And that special favor is pulling from the very root the cause of the impetus for fruitive activity. Namely, he says, B-I-Z, namely, nescience and evil desires. So, something unjust happens, and behind that unjust thing happening is their Supreme Lord, who is being kind upon that devotee by uprooting at its very root the tendency for trying to be an enjoyer of the material energy. And there's no shelter in being an enjoyer of the material energy. And it's His special kindness. So it's hard to, so repose those emotions over there. I can't relate to that, sorry. It's unjust. You get stuck with the emotion of injustice. But in the transcendental realm, and in the material realm, injustice. But in the transcendental realm, it's kindness. It doesn't look like kindness, it looks like injustice and pain. So the life of devotion involves being able to rise to those higher understandings and take shelter there. Otherwise, we'll just continue struggling hard with the material energy. That's not a nice option. Microphone over here.
This is maybe going a little different angle, if a subject,
Fine.
if that's okay.
Let's go.
Growing up, going to school, going to college, we just never hear about any trace of Vedic civilization in terms of archaeology, history. And I brought this up with Nityananda Prabhu. I was curious, even in India, are the histories of Mahabharata taught, or has it become purely secular? And they teach, he said they don't go back this far. So for me, there's still a gap in terms of like archaeological and historical evidence that for some reason there's a big bubble that we hear about the Egyptians, the Mesopotamia, but is there some kind of, and maybe, Michael Cremo Prabhu's work about, is there some sinister plan that why such a prominent when I hear Prabhupada speak about Vedic culture, it's this empire. How is it that none of it is known or even brought up in our modern, educational culture?
Well, outside, three things. Outside of a country, the country teaches history the way the country teaches history. Let's just take American history and the treatment of the American Indians. It's not taught in school. Now it's beginning, books are being written and the Trail of Tears and all that. Without going, into too much detail. There's lots of detail. It's really gruesome. In slavery and because that's becoming big now. But it's not taught in schools. The bad stuff isn't taught. And then the picture of world history is according to Rah, our nation, and not according to the atrocities that we did and others did, and so forth. That's one thing. And then in India, it's not taught in America. It's the perspective of what's, when Christopher Columbus was coming to America, what's being said about what was going on in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's life? It's just not there. It's, body-centered. So second is in India, somebody sent me a link, so I listened, I watched. Someone who was pursuing the findings of Dwarka. And there was an interest in the government, and because there was interest from the government, there was money, and they started discovering things. And then it just all of a sudden dried up. And it wasn't like complete. And so this is a Western person went to the people who knew about why it dried up, and they wouldn't talk about it. Then there was someone that talked about it. And just like, the government's not giving money. Now maybe Prime Minister Modi would decide to give some money to continuing that exploration. I don't know. But it's the secular government and not wanting to, whatever their ideology is, I don't know. But even in India, it's not promoted without going into detail. What's the reason? It's Kali Yuga, and you cover God, and that's what Kali Yuga is. You have to do it, and so they do it. That's the spirit. It's the ignorance that's covering real knowledge. And a third is our founder Acharya. He was really on the warpath. Recently I heard Prabhupada describing how he was invited someplace, I forget the place, to speak about Gandhi, on the disappearance of Gandhi, on the importance of nonviolence. So he was describing to the devotees how he spoke. This was, in the 50s. He said, it's 3 steps. Nonviolence. Violence is someone is entitled to something and you physically prevent them from that which they're entitled to. Second step, in India, the culture of India is known all over the world that there's spirituality. The third, denying it is violence. Modern education system is violence. Mode of ignorance is violence. It's just, that which is inherently of the people born in India, that's just quite natural for them, is being denied systematically. Violence. So why violence? Because the age of Kali. In the name of, promote Gandhi, who wanted, Krishna didn't live. Proponent of Bhagavad Gita. There was no, it's ignorance. And people are attracted to ignorance. So it's a big challenge. So you come out with knowledge instead of ignorance, and you don't have a big audience. You come out with ignorance instead of knowledge, you have a big audience.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. My question is that, does the pastimes of Raj, which is going to happen in the future, does the higher authorities knows those pastimes?
Does who?
The higher authorities, like the great, the authorities like Brahmaji, the Brahma and other sages, they know those pastimes which is going to happen in the Vraj, which has not yet happened?
They have all knowledge, but their knowledge can be covered. Narada had knowledge. He told Krishna what his pastimes were before they happened. He had knowledge. If he got it, how did he get it? He was qualified, and from Brahma. So yes, he has knowledge. But knowledge can become covered.
Sure. So what I understand is that in Canto 2nd, when Brahmaji is explaining that this is going to happen in future, at that time he has a knowledge. But when he wants to, when the demigods are approaching Brahmaji to approach to Krishna and is going to the shore of Shirodakshai ocean, he has not that knowledge because he's approaching from distance and he's chanting Purusha Shukta prayers.
I mean, it seems that your question is probing one who has knowledge. How does he act as if he doesn't have knowledge?
No, I'm supporting your answer that he could have a knowledge at one point, but when the demigods approached him, he forgot that knowledge.
Something like that. It's not, he's a plaything in Krishna's hands, as are all devotees. He has a certain relationship, and with that a certain relationship, a certain regard. And Krishna wants to bring him further. And so he enacts pastimes to help bring him further. So he may not have the same, he does not have the same mood in his relationship with Krishna as the Brijvasis do. But he knows who is Krishna, so he's doing what is his position. He's the knower of all the Vedas. And the Vedas have the purpose of understanding Krishna. So Krishna's engaging with him to bring him to a more profound understanding of what he already knows. It's a relationship, situation that Krishna's elevating him as he's elevating those who want to become more elevated. Okay?
Sure. One last question.
The short answer is yes, but it's a more elaborate answer than just yes.
Yes.
Go ahead. Next question.
Yeah. We are seeing that different acharyas has a different viewpoints about the pastimes occurring in the Vraj. The sequence changes for different acharyas. Why it's that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is mentioning this pastime has happened after this, and his Guru Maharaj is saying that immediately his Guru Maharaj is saying that this is happening after that, or Jiva Goswami is saying that this is happening after that. So why there is a lot of
There's different ways of explaining, but one way of explaining is with reference to Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. These great acharyas, unlike us, they have the capacity to enter samadhi and have direct experiences and revelations in that state of samadhi in relation to Krishna, and that's what they're revealing. And if they have this realization that comes from Krishna, they're sharing it. It's not disrespectful. It's not, in an absolute sense, contradictory. It's their realization, and leave it at that. There's other I can give other examples, but you don't need other examples. You're asking about a principle.
Sure.
And it's their relationship with Krishna on the authority of Guru, Sadhu, Shastra, which they don't neglect. But they also have their realization in profound absorption in Krishna's pastimes that's being revealed to them.
or their special role or the special sarupa is more inclined toward that pastime, so they're describing that pastime first?
It's whatever Krishna reveals is what they express. And you can say that's a factor, and another factor, another factor. Could be a different day of Brahma that's being spoken of. That's another way that these discrepancies are sometimes addressed by our acharyas. That this is referring to a different day of Brahma when Krishna appears, and that's a different day of Brahma when Krishna appears. That's explicitly in their commentary they say this is a possible explanation. So rather than parsing out, it's just they have their revelation, realization based on Guru Sadhu Shastra, and they're expressing it. And that's just fine. Great personalities, perfected souls can disagree. So what to speak of us?
Not disagreeing it, but I'm just understanding that Krishna's pastime is very mysterious.
Very mysterious. And the relationships between Krishna and the great Acharya commentators is also quite mysterious. It's not like breaking ranks or they're being defiant or insulting or something like that. They just have their relationship with Krishna, who's revealing things to them, and they're expressing it. It's not common. It's common that they share, but they have their specific realizations. Here's another one, because, you like controversy. Sridhar Swami says that when Krishna was born, Nanda Maharaj gave away 2 lakhs of cows, something like that. And one of the other acharyas, I forget which one of the other acharyas, says it's 12 lakhs of cows. That's a big difference, or 20, or something like that. That's just, numerical. It's either this or it's that. Like with this Yomasura. Was it before, when he was 3, or when he was 11? It's just, numerical, factual. It's factual. So there's differences. If this one's right, then that one's got to be wrong. If that one's right, then this one's got to be wrong. That's the binary mind. And there's a mystery to all this, and it's a relationship that they have with Krishna, and he's revealing things. And they're expressing it. We don't get disturbed by it.
I have a comment, not a question. As you were saying, Krishna, although demons are envious to Krishna, Krishna liberates them.
Yeah, isn't it nice?
And that's kindness and mercy of Krishna. I was thinking, like Krishna, his devotees also, one may be judging them, one may be feeling judged by them, but then their mission is always to bring liberation or mercy of Krishna to others.
Yes.
Just a comment.
Now I'm thinking of her question. When the injustice is done to those souls, that's painful. But there's a way to look at it. Krishna is helping them come closer to that ultimate destination. Although, through whatever medium he wants. Prabhupada ki jai.